All right, namaste. Setting up microphones, pulling up chat, refreshing my screen, fixing technological things that I can't see right now. Why did this event disappear? There it is. Like, wait a minute. Nothing's here, but it is. Okay, good. There's the chat. It's late just by a couple of minutes. So, where do we want to begin today? I know you guys have a lot of questions about the blog that I wrote. Every year, I do a, New Year's theme of the year. And this one was Emergence. And a lot of you had questions on that. So today's one of those days where I'm going to sit here and channel all of the answers that you have about emergence. Let's start with not ignoring the physical. We have the Human Conscious Collective channeling coming up on the 26th. That's really soon. I think next week, right? Next Friday. And guess who's going to be doing it? Well, I shouldn't say it. She has offered. I need to confirm with her that she's going to be doing it. But Candace Carl Goldman again. And then on the 29th, Candace Carl Goldman with being my interviewer for the lovely Dolores Cannon. So we've got a lot coming up next week and the week after that with channelings. What I've noticed with Emergence is that in the Human Conscious Collective, it doesn't feel very good. I have spent the majority of the day breaking up fights in my own spiritual community and then getting warnings from Facebook and almost losing the spiritual community. That is what Emergence looks like. When people don't know that if they report an entire community to Facebook, that we can stand to not have that community in existence any longer. That was good times. So, yeah, and getting letters from ARE about my Edgar Casey channeling. So it was a day where the entire Human Conscious Collective woke up feeling off and angry and judged and shamed and guilty. And then they began to lash out in defense. Many people were feeling the need to defend each other. So emergence is a strange thing because, as I described in my blog, it feels a little bit like being cocooned and you're in here, and you are reaching out and a part of you's out and a part of you isn't, and a part of you still feels incredibly vulnerable, but a part of you's got your hands out and wings are forming and you are moving them up and down and back and forth going, I know it's supposed to be cool out here, but it feels cold and there's strange noises and strange sounds and I don't really know what's out here just yet. And my head's just lifting up and looking and seeing through the veil, of the birth canal, if you will. So emergence feels a little bit like that. It's not incredibly comfortable at first, and much like babies when they are in distress in their mother's womb and they come out and they feel a little bit like, all right, what's out here? I think I'm going to cry now. Emergence doesn't feel good, at least for the first tiny baby steps of it, until you really get a grasp on what's out there, that you're safe, that it's still okay. And you get a grasp on the awkward stages of spiritual infancy, is the way that I would put it. So in the physical world of that, it is uncomfortable. The deepest, darkest things that you really don't want to face are still coming out, especially in January. So we're still kind of closing that 2012 portal that we talked about in some of the other classes last week and the week before. So it's still awkward. Now's the time to ask all of your questions about it in chat. That's how we interact. If you're watching from Patreon, what you need to do is scroll your mouse over the screen here, especially the header, and click on it. Sign into your YouTube account. And then it will either be to the right or to the bottom once you sign into your YouTube account, and then you will be able to interact through the live chat here with the rest of us. Waiting on your questions and just kind of sitting here, seeing where this class is going to go. Didn't prepare for it because I feel like it needs to be completely channeled. There's a lot of shifts. Did you know that today, speaking of emergence, today is the day where I actually started my community 3 years ago. I started my spiritual online communities, all three of them, on this day. I sat back and invited tons of people. I must have invited about 500 people that I knew and loved and said, hey, you know me, here I am. Let's all get to know each other 3 years ago. Speaking of emergence, the physical stages of emergence is the biggest thing that you need to pay attention to. For those of you who understand that I'm a galactic historian, you understand simultaneously as an alchemist why I don't teach galactic history that much anymore. Because it implies that you should be focusing on something that you view as outside of yourself. And until you can release separation beliefs, and if you view extraterrestrial beings as a part of your past, as opposed to understanding that you and the extraterrestrial are one and the same being, it's not incredibly helpful to focus on galactic history. You're here in the physical stages of emergence. That part of ascension means you must focus on your human body. This year, my particular degree of focus on human body is by going to a bioidentical hormone replacement therapist, because I'm aware as a medical intuitive that my hormones are out of line due to immense amounts of stress from 2017 that I'm just karmically burning through. So karma is still there residually. And there's something that I wanted to read to you. So I brought this book today from the Oneness Teachings by Rasha. She actually channels the same collective that I do when I channel Oneness. And I wanted to teach from some of the things that she said there about some of the final stages of emergence, which she calls, ascension in this book. That's going to kind of give you a guideline of what emotionally happens in emergence. And that's going to help a good bit. It's like we talked about this in the last class about how sometimes you go backwards and you kind of look at something that you've already learned, but you observe it from a test of non-reactivity, and then you emotionally respond, but not in a lower frequency. Okay. Yeah. And Maria, you're putting it in a good way. She said, can you explain how you can have a car full of people and they can each have a very different reality? Because that reality is not true. Therefore, in a bendable matrix-based reality that is an illusion, it's only a reality within that illusion, which means that from the higher perspective, every single higher self could shift and create that reality in the same way that it would be created if you were playing an MMORPG game. For those of you who understand gaming, you might get this. And for those of you who don't, what that looks like is in role playing. I'll give you an example. A very old game that I played on the PlayStation when I was in my 20s. It was called A Bard's Tale. It would start out and it's like, and the bard is all nice and jolly and he's going about on his horse. What kind of horse do you want? Okay, you travels. You see a farmer who is experiencing drought because he had a fire. Do you want to give away some of the vegetables that you're carrying to help I don't know why this happens with the sound. Yeah, as soon as you don't hear sound, it's good to let me know right away. And then as soon as you can hear sound, for the sake of time, it's good to let me know. I'm not grounded as whole. My feet are on the ground, but I am having a horrible day. So the ascension process, emergence, has not been fun for me. So yeah, as soon as you hear things like that, I am watching chat. So it's good to, let me know. Sometimes in channeling, so I'm not. So other people have to watch. That's why I have interviewers. So in this experience, we're talking about the road trip, that this would be an experience. In my most recent experience, well, I can't even say recent, but most memorable experience of a road trip with people that were having different frequency observations and perceptions. You have to understand that just like the bard's tale, I don't know if you guys got that reference before my sound went out, that the bard could be traveling. He is the main character of the game and you are controlling that character. So thank you, Raven. So if he's on the horse and you're controlling the character, right? And you see a farmer who's struggling because he had some drought and he had a fire, and the farmer comes up and says, howdy, stranger. And the bard's like, well, hello, good sir. And I can feel myself going back into the game now. Would you care to help me out, with tending to my farm? Because, that I've had this drought, had this fire, and you've got to make a choice, a free will decision, whether or not to help, because the primary goal for the human conscious collective, as you will learn in the channeling on the 26th, is to be helpful. So if our primary goal and lesson as a human conscious collective is to be helpful, the bard would do what? He would stop and offer his assistance and be helpful to the farmer, right? And then later down the road in the game, perhaps he will be of service and he will ask for some help, and a farmer will say, oh, I remember when you helped me, good sir, you're having some struggles with food, and because you helped me replenish my farm, here is an entire cornucopia of vegetables. You see how that works? So speaking of the road trip, going back to that example, the most memorable time in my road trip experience, where we were all in the car but experiencing different immersions, if you will, and emerging differently, my particular gift and anyone's particular lesson of what they are uniquely meant to experience on this planet will cause the filter through which the lens is turned. So this would be, Maria, like looking through a kaleidoscope, and emergence is a bit like this. So I don't have anything to show you. Okay, we'll use my daughter's favorite little spoon here, her little yogurt spoon. So basically, if this is the kaleidoscope and you're looking through, say you choose to look at something at fear and paranoia, which was my experience in the road trip. I'm like, so-and-so is super ornery and I did something wrong. I'm accountable. So at that point, Spirit speaks to me. Krishna's called this Holy Spirit, and at ACIM they call this that, Holy Spirit, and I just call it higher self or inner guidance, right? So your inner guidance or Holy Spirit or guides or higher self or whatever you want to speak of talks to you and says, hey, it's really not benefiting you to look this way. Maybe you could turn this spoon inward and figure out why you're feeling accountable for this person's perspective when you have said absolutely nothing to them. But instead, ego turns it this way. And ego is like, oh, look down here, go deeper into your heart for a minute, while also staying connected to your head. Ego might say, and this is what she did during this road trip, you know what? You might want to look at, maybe you didn't open the door. Maybe you accidentally slammed the door too fast and almost hit her in the face when you were stopping at the restroom. And maybe when you were buying your slushie, you should have asked if you were to buy her a slushie or smoothie, like when you guys stopped. And that she doesn't have that much money on this trip. And maybe now her trip is not enjoyable because you didn't offer to buy her a smoothie. Accountability to the max, right? So with the lesson of emergence, what you do is you allow the heart to emerge while simultaneously holding a space of compassionate presence and approval for the ego. So then you would ask yourself this question. This is the mental and emotional level of emergence. And you would ask the ego the question, and first you would say, I'm completely here with you right now. That is part of my connection process that we teach a lot here in alchemy. So you would put your hand on your chest and kind of visualize and tap into your inner child. Visualize your sacred shape around your body in whatever way that comes up for you. And then you would say, I am completely here with you right now. I give you full permission to feel, accept, and if necessary, release that which no longer serves you in this thought and situation. From that point on, your ego is at least feeling a space of validation of not necessarily approval yet, but just safety and presence. So that's what you want to establish first. Secondly, you want to either validate or form an approval, whichever way you want to do it. So you would ask yourself, how do I seek approval? How does approval serve me in this instance? And you would ask the ego that question. So in that case, I could say, why and how am I looking for approval? And how would it serve me to believe that I am accountable for this person's foul mood? You would go deep into the head. And the answer in that instance was, it serves me because I have formulated a need to feel accountable. When I'm accountable, I'm more in control. When I'm more in control, I feel less disempowered. So I was actually trying to empower myself by believing I was accountable so that I could fix the situation, like talk to the person, get them to speak, maybe apologize, maybe buy a smoothie. All these different little scenarios were coming up that I could have missed, that I could fix, become accountable for. Then everyone is in a better mood because they're not tiptoeing around that person's mood that's in the car, and we're all locked in there together for the next 15 hours, right? You know how that feels terrible as empaths to be in a car with someone who's completely pissed off. So I'm like, well, if I can fix everyone's mood and I can fix this person, then everyone feels better. Then I feel better. And in essence, I was giving myself an egoic permission to become a complete control freak by forcing accountability upon my own inner child so that everyone else can feel more comfortable, which makes me more comfortable. So you got to go to the essence of that. Why do I need approval for this? Well, because I feel powerless. And when you feel powerless, you don't feel safe. And when you don't feel safe, you want to fix things. You see how your head goes around, 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 around. This is also a part of my resistance process, which is under the spiritual development section or playlist in my YouTube channel. So we haven't had time to put that in form yet, but it's there and it's long, and it really teaches you how to get through that, right? So in those road trips, when you're stuck in a car or a house with someone, whichever the case is, you have to vacation with someone, you're going to feel their frequencies because it serves you to find out why you feel the way you feel so that you can look at the negative core beliefs that you need to release. You can find a different way. You can turn, if this is the kaleidoscope again, using the example, turn this inwards. When you turn this inwards, you get to see, not looking outwards at the various different perspectives of what's going on in emergence, but you're turning inwards and you're looking at the various perspectives of how every single one is perspective related. Yeah. So it gets incredibly exciting. But what is going to be happening in Emergence this year is you're going to be revisiting that which you have already integrated, and it is a massive test of, are you going to go backwards or not? And not just revisit it, but reclaim it. So do you really want to reclaim something negative? So this is what it is, and it is uncharted territory. So I'm going to read this excerpt. Again, this comes from the Oneness Teachings by Rasha, because she channels the same collective that I do. And sometimes she can get straighter to the point and be more succinct, especially because it's a book. All right, here it is. Many who read these words will feel a reluctance to step into uncharted territory. Believe me, that's what this year is about. When the reality of what is transpiring becomes obvious. And after all the work has been done and the destination is in view, it is easy suddenly to question all of it. For it's one thing to have intellectually grasped the concepts that have been presented and to have gone through the motions of putting them into practice, but it is quite another thing to begin to embody the heightened energies and to experience the quickening that accompanies it. That is something that I talked about in my blog, that all the Ascension symptoms, for me particularly, is hormonal balance, sleeplessness, hair loss, weight gain, and complete hormonal madness for the past 3 months. That has been my particular ascension symptom. Moving forward, the new sensations of heightened vibration can be alarming at first if one is unprepared to anticipate the feelings that accompany the advanced stages of the transformation process. And as the interdimensional threshold is approached, one can expect to experience an otherworldly sense of detachment from the mundane aspects of one's life script. So what that looks like for me, and some people have judged this as apathy or not incredibly like being compassionate, but that is a part of whatever core belief needs to come out in my particular negative core belief system of feeling that if I'm not compassionate and completely fixing everything, then I'm accountable. So it's this, you start to detach from the aspects that would formerly have triggered the crap out of you. Like, for instance, in today's example, in my spiritual community, someone was really being mean, like super mean to like everyone that approached him, but he was going through so much immense pain. That would have completely triggered me even as early as 2 years ago. But since then, what I saw was, oh my God, that was me at age 24. That was me when I was so disgusted with paradigms and authority figures and right and wrong. And that was me going through the duality. That was me feeling completely powerless by the world telling me who to be, what to do, what not to do. And even in my responses today, I initially frequented the same response. And I said, well, I'm not going to take your bait. This was someone who was trying to make me accountable. I said, I'm not going to take this bait. You're free to feel however you feel. You're free to leave this group or stay and learn or not, or just whatever you want to do. I'm here. I'm listening. I'm observing. However, I refuse to take the bait of going into accountability by receiving your advice that was unsolicited about what an alchemist is and what it isn't, and what an alchemist should do and should not do. It is unsolicited, and I was not looking for that advice. So I legitimately just rejected that person's advice, probably completely offended him. But when you're going into emergence, what happens is you have to do you while simultaneously no longer holding shame, blame, guilt, or judgment, good or bad, towards a person who's trying to make you own formerly already integrated core beliefs and lessons. So that was my role there. Okay, to do that in my emergence. So again, as the interdimensional threshold is approached, that's what this January is about, is sticking our head up above the universal womb of consciousness and looking above it, because it is like a universal threshold, but it's a bit like going through the womb. You're squeezed on the way out. Sorry for the metaphors. It just is. And you develop that mundane sense of that sense of detachment from rather mundane aspects of what would normally trigger you. And at the same time, you develop a deep sense of contentment that is not cause related, and it permeates your consciousness. That's what I want to talk about, because today I haven't channeled this and put this in writing form yet, but I really need to. So someone remind me, please, later. Shoot me an email or something, because there was a channeling that was supposed to go into the Elohim book this morning that didn't, because I got all wrapped up. What Archangel Michael taught me about emergence this morning is to formulate a truer sense of the word happiness, because I was talking to him in trance this morning, kind of in between sleeping and waking, when you're in that state, as a channel. And so many different people were like, I just want peace and I just want happiness. In every healing integration session that I've been through lately, I noticed that theme of people, when I asked them what would they rather feel instead of the negative belief they're trying to integrate, they would often say, I just want to be happy. And while that's valid, I'm definitely not trying to invalidate anyone's particular perspective. What Archangel Michael said is that happiness is not something that comes before you are at least beginning to, what did he say? Before you are in the process of ascension. Basically, happiness, that is a very stagnant emotion. Happiness has no particular action form to it, right? It just doesn't. What you need instead would be a contentment, which is a trust, an allowance, and a flow. I am content with where I am, grateful for where I am. Therefore, within that contentment, I am fully open for enthusiasm, motivation, passion, anger. Yes, he even said anger is appropriate towards some people's path in perceiving and receiving and creating happiness. Anger, tension, frustration, all of those are action-based emotions that are actually incredibly high frequency. So many people argue with me today saying, how could you support anger in your spiritual community? And I'm like, he actually is catalyzing all of you to cease judgment, and judgment creates death. So he is doing you a damn good favor right now, being so angry. And you are standing to learn and propel yourself out of stagnation, because when you're angry, you are in motion. You notice when you get angry, it's very similar to excitement and passion and motivation, all of which many people who are depressed in the beginning stages of their emergence and spiritual awakening will say that they don't have. I can't go towards happiness and find my purpose because I don't have the motivation. I can't because I don't have the passion or the enthusiasm or the energy, is another way that people put that. So, yeah, this deep sense of contentment that's not cause related will permeate your consciousness, and you will begin to feel like a gratitude and an appreciation and just okay, I really don't know what's going to happen, but I'm feeling completely content and open and ready to receive what's right up underneath my nose. Again, back to the birthing analogy of the veil being up here and the head of the baby right there, and the veil wants to push out because you're not pushing down, you're pushing upward and out like that. Going back to Rasha, one has the sense of virtually floating over the day-to-day details of one's life without being drawn into feeling invested in the outcome of these scenarios. The reason why that sentence particularly suited me is because oneness talks to me all the time about releasing attachments and expectations, because attachments are just as deadly as judgments. So releasing judgment is the first step in everything, and giving yourself permission to be in peaceful contentment with every situation with complete trust and allowance. Because when you move into flow, that's motion, that's energetic, ek-based. In alchemy, we call it ek. That's movement of energy throughout your actual body. And then you begin to get excitement and motivation and all those things that sometimes you don't have. You know, well, one need not be, invested. For the pages are turning so quickly at this stage of your journey that outcomes will not actually be experienced in the way one might anticipate them under normal conditions. So do you know what she means by that? In normal conditions in your past, when you have acclimated your entire journey based upon negative core beliefs that have taught you to expect something yucky, outcomes are not, you can't even anticipate it because you have no particular, you're in this in-between stage. It's like birth. You don't know it's out there, therefore you must trust and be content. Here we go. Again, the laws of cause and effect have been radically rewritten at this point in the process. And at times, what manifests as one's reality is far from what would have been expected. And you can see why oneness would say that, right? Because what you expect is, say, using myself as an example, with a core belief, I am accountable and responsible. I expected Facebook to shut me down this morning because we got reported for someone's, yuckiness, or from what the community called it, yuckiness anyway. So basically, my old belief was like, oh crap, you are accountable and 31,000 people are going to lose spiritual community because of you. And then I was like, wait a minute. No, not true. I love you, ego, for all that you taught me and the accountability core belief, but I can no way in shape and form be responsible for 31,000 people's reactions, responses, and feelings. Absolutely not. With love, I reject that belief. And that is what I said. And in that moment, Facebook retracted their little things that they were stating. I deleted the post, and we all continued to talk about it and grow and learn and heal and move on. And it was over. But do you see how that visited me again? Even though I integrated that last year, it visits me from time to time to time. I had to recently cancel a very big event, and I had a partner in that event who was teaching along with me, a colleague rather. And, he lost money, I lost money. So I sent him this long apology of how much money was actually lost and why I can't do it. And then he didn't respond. And I was like, oh no, accountability. It had the moment to raise its head and pull me backwards into that frequency. And then this morning, once I rejected that and just went, no, that wouldn't be true. That wouldn't be something that he would do. And that's me. That's my fear. He responded and said, oh, that's, it's too bad. It's too bad. And many blessings to you, we'll stay in touch. So who knows what the future will bring, right? So there's no rhyme or reason to what will transpire in these circumstances where you're being tested right now and emerging, not from the perspective of older negative core belief, linear logic, and egoic brain response. Okay. Moving back to Rasha, as the details of resolution play out for each of you, a barrage of parallel experiences may manifest, one after another. This is how it has been since December 12th for me, by the way, one after another. And they deepen. Each experience gets harder and harder. The test gets more and more difficult, and it's easy to give into it at some point. Don't. Okay. A barrage of parallel experiences may manifest one after the other as if to underscore a particular life lesson that must be mastered, right? You can anticipate experiencing a sequence of seemingly unwanted provocation that gives the impression of being virtually under siege. What is being tested at this stage is if and how you react. It is not unusual to find oneself backsliding into defensiveness and reactions that reflect an investment in having to be right. And until this pattern is recognized, one can continue in such a cycle for what appears to be an agonizingly long time. And then abruptly, the energy shifts once more, and the barrage of adversity is no longer there. And you will have achieved the state where you are present in your own circumstances with great indifference as a witness. You will find yourself watching your circumstances unfold and observing yourself as you float through turbulence, untouched by the emotional charge that might once have accompanied it. Hallelujah, right? Finally, now that's a really relevant stage with what we're going through in this month in Emergence. Okay. Got a few more minutes, 3 to be exact, before I have to go pick up my kid and do trumpet lessons and gymnastics and dance lessons and all that stuff that we do on Thursdays. So let me look at your questions. How can we let go of the abuses, all types, that we have felt and encountered that still lie in our energy fields? I think oneness just pretty much answered that. You don't let it go. What happens is it lets go of you, the less you lower your vibration to emotionally react in offense or defense or some sort of negative reaction, as opposed to responding kind of as a witness. So for me, when I respond as a witness, if I'm about to be offended, I will get neutral and indifferent so that I don't go into it. But if I'm completely rising above it, I respond with love. So there's a bit of a difference with how far you have come in this lesson. So respond with indifference. That's the best thing you can do. Neutrality. If you feel like you're getting triggered, stay neutral, even if you have to walk away. Okay. So does cellular memory play a role? Yeah, it's there. It's lifetimes upon lifetimes of experiences where you have grown and you come into this lifetime to pull from that cellular memory from childhood and other lifetimes normally in order to expand that same lesson that you mastered in a lower frequency in other times. You know what I mean? So of course it does, and it's there to help you, not harm you. So it's important. It's important when you're learning emergence not to assume that cellular memory is there to punish you or make things harder. That's kind of the biggest thing. All right, looking at your questions. Fingers and hands have been going numb. Yeah, that can be a part of some of the hormonal imbalances for a lot of the alchemists and empaths and channels that are watching this podcast. About MS, Kalandra, it is not a condition or disease. It is actually a symptom of toxicity overload. So MMS4health.com, check that out. Google how to take MMS, and that will detox anything that's in your body. Do it safely and with caution. Not that it's unsafe, but it can cause so much toxic overload. So when I take it, I also try to take at least 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C 1 to 3 times a day so that I can bump out any toxins that come up. I keep going back and forth between wanting to stay in higher vibrations, but giving into lower vibrations. Are there any tools? Yep. Read this book. All the tools are there. Read it. It's all there. And my Elohim book gives a lot of tools for this kind of stuff as well. And we're working diligently to get it out there. So that will be helpful in emergence as well. Don't see any more questions, and it's time to go. So thank you all for being here with me again today. And it looks like I will see you tomorrow for the for our shamanic journey. So it's appropriate timing. I think we could really use it. I'll see you tomorrow too. Much love. Namaste.